Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Weissman. I'm co-president of Public Citizen with Move On, Stand Up for America, Constitutional Accountability Center. Public Citizen co-chairs the Not Above the Law Network, which stands for the principle for which we're named. We're thrilled to be here today on Constitution Day to celebrate the values of the Constitution, including that no one is above the law. We've got some great champions to talk about these principles and some new legislation. We're going to kick it off with Senator Adam Schiff from California.
Robert, thank you very much, and thank you to all the incredible organizations that have come together today and are such great champions of our democracy. It is a delight to be with you. Thank you for standing with us, because you believe, as I do, that democracy at its core is an act of faith. Faith in the improbable experiment in self-governance that we call America. Faith that our people possess sufficient wisdom and virtue that we can govern ourselves and that we don't need to be ruled by a despot. A belief that elections should belong to the people and not to the highest bidder. The conviction that government should serve all of us, not just the most powerful, not just the most well-connected. This year, indeed, this last decade, that trust, that belief, that faith has been battered. Battered by corruption, battered by the dominant influence of mega corporations, battered by a president who treats the rule of law as an inconvenience and self-enrichment as an animating purpose. But battered does not mean broken. And today we take a step towards rebuilding faith in the resiliency of our democracy, brick by brick, one safeguard after another. Today I'm introducing the Protecting Our Democracy Act. This initiative, first undertaken by Speaker Pelosi, who brought together a group of us in the first years of the first term of the president to draft our own set of post-Watergate-like reforms. This legislation, if passed, will enshrine into law the guardrails that Donald Trump has so gleefully torn down and establish new ones to prevent future abuses of power. Safeguards to help ensure that no president can exist above the law, that whistleblowers are protected, not punished, that no government employee is so special that they are immune from conflict of interest laws when they promote their own economic interests over those of competitors or the country. That Congress's power of the purse cannot be hijacked by a wannabe king or a man named Vote who got no votes. That the public's trust cannot be sold to the highest bidder. But we can't stop there, because even before Donald Trump, there was another rot eating away at the faith in our system, the flood of dark money unleashed by Citizens United. That decision told Americans their voices could be drowned out by a billionaire's checkbook. It turned elections into auctions. Today, it told everyday citizens they were competing with corporations masquerading as people. So I'm joining my colleagues to reintroduce my constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United, as I have for many years, to once ago affirm what should be obvious, that our democracy is not for sale, that the power of an idea should never be measured by the size of a bank account. These are not partisan measures. These are, in my view, patriotic ones. And I'm determined, all of us are determined, to rebuild the bulwark of our democracy so that future generations inherit a republic stronger, fairer, and more just than the one we have now. Lincoln called this nation the last best hope for mankind. If we are to ensure that remains true, we must make his cause our cause, to repair what's broken, to restore what's been lost, and to remind the American people why democracy is worth believing in again. Thank you again for being here. I will now turn the microphone over to my friend and the strongest champion of democracy we have seen in these trying times, and that is House Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Senator, for once again introducing this very important legislation. I love these signs, no one is above the Constitution. Tell that to the Supreme Court. Tell them to the Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court that decided Citizens United to undermine our democracy and making it so hard for us to even change the law except through an amendment to the Constitution. But we could have disclosed, and that would be very important as well. Well, anyway, today is Constitution Day, and tell that to the Supreme Court, who said that the president is above the law. He has immunity for whatever he does. I would say thinks, but I'm not sure that happens there. And here we are, and I'm honored to join, of course, our champion for all of this, Adam Schiff. How many times have we stood in front of the press and introduced this legislation when you were in the House, and now carrying this fight even more importantly to the Senate because it's more urgent now. To be here with Dan Goldman, whom I admired when he was staffing so much of this as a member of the House staff of Senator Adam Schiff, and now as a member of Congress. That's a perfect path for our country. Summer Lee will be with us. Robert Weissman, Praveen, it's an honor to be with you. Thank you for what Public Citizen and the Constitution Accountability Center have done. Now here's the thing. The genius of the Constitution that made us a democracy is the separation of power. That says we do not have a monarch. We have a separation of power. Article 1 of the Constitution is the legislative branch. Article 1, before even the executive branch. And the Constitution is very clear about the powers of the legislative branch. So for this administration to usurp that power, and for this Congress to be accomplices to it, is for them not to dishonor their oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. This legislation is a very, very important step. We passed it in the House. Of course, we keep saying that we passed it in the House, but of course there is a Senate. And now we have a champion in the Senate, so that will make a big difference. Protecting our democracy. Our founders had wisdom. They had wisdom. They had courage. They declared independence. They fought a battle to win it. They wrote our founding documents. Thank God they made the Constitution amendable, because that was very important. And for centuries, presidents have shown a respect for the norms and the institutions that keep this system going. During the our colleague Jamie Raskin is always reminding us that Thomas Paine said during the Revolution, the times have found us. Again, the sad litany of abuses by the Trump administration, the times have found us to address those, to protect the vision and values of our founders, to improve the strength of our democracy. The times have found our founders, the times found Lincoln to save our democracy. The times have found us now to protect our democracy. This legislation, as you know, defends the rule of law, strengthens accountability, restores basic ethics to government, as was beautifully described more thoroughly by the senator. In doing so, we prevent the president, any president, from abusing the awesome power of the office with his self-interest. So let us honor the brilliance of our founders, the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform to protect our freedom as guaranteed by the Constitution, and the aspirations of our children to live in America, the promise of America. A model, has been a model up until now to the rest of the world. How many times members of Congress have gone to countries to view their elections, to see if they are free and fair? That is a symbol, essential to a democracy. Independent judiciary, free and fair elections, freedom of the press, all of these things, separation of power, all of these things being eroded by this administration. Never before has this legislation been more necessary. Thank you for all that you're doing. Let's hope it's a happy Constitution Day. Now I'm pleased to yield to the distinguished chair. Excuse me. Okay? Excuse me. We have an important fight on our hands. Let's not fight among ourselves about this, because what we have to do is be firm, clear, unified, and understand that our democracy is at stake. A champion at restoring our democracy is my colleague from New York, Congressman Dan Goldman.
Just for future reference, you never want to follow Senator Schiff and Speaker Pelosi, but I'm honored to be here with them to emphasize and reintroduce the Protecting Our Democracy Act. When Donald Trump came into office, he made it very clear that the office of the presidency was his personal fiefdom. Now, there were some checks from his own party in the first term. Certainly, I, along with working for Senator Schiff and under the incredible leadership of Speaker Pelosi, brought some degree of accountability with the first impeachment. In this second term, though, all bets are off. No holds barred. And the difference is that Donald Trump has completely cowed Congress, a separate branch of government that is controlled by the Republicans and has completely rolled over. So many of the fundamental norms that we have taken for granted to undergird our democracy are being destroyed one by one by one. And it is a coordinated mass effort. He is going after the media. He is going after every form of accountability, inspectors general, law firms, universities. He is going after arts institutions. This is the authoritarian playbook. And then it gets worse because he's politicizing and weaponizing the Department of Justice as his own personal revenge and retribution arm. That is how our democracy gets degraded. And ultimately, his goal is very clearly to take it over as his own authoritarian rule. This bill is going to lay the foundation for our proposal for how we are going to reclaim our democracy. We have to now codify so many of these norms that everyone expected, that those who come to our shores revere, because it is the freedom and the fairness of our elections and the right to vote and the opportunity for anyone to work hard, play by the rules, and become a super successful person, no matter where you were born or what your background was. This bill is going to prevent the corruption of the presidency that Donald Trump has brought. It will codify a law so that we can enforce the emoluments clause as Trump takes billions of dollars from foreign countries. It is going to prevent presidents from abusing the pardon power for their own self-interest, to pardon people who may have criminal information against them, which Donald Trump has done in the past. It's going to make congressional oversight stronger so that he cannot simply reject and refuse to comply with subpoenas. It is going to limit these so-called emergency powers. It will protect whistleblowers. And it will protect our criminal justice system from being politicized. Because if that happens, we are nothing more than a banana republic. And that is exactly what, as the Speaker Emeritus said, we travel around the world to tell other countries, do not do that. Do not prosecute your political enemies, because that is the most anti-democratic thing that you can do. And so I am proud to be here with such incredible colleagues to reintroduce legislation that we will pass when we take back the presidency in 2028. And it is going to be the foundation of restoring our democracy. I'm now pleased to introduce my colleague, Summer Lee.
Thank you. Good morning. I am, I don't want to say encouraged to be here, but I'm encouraged that we're taking the steps, because when I say that this is the most important issue that we're facing, if you I oftentimes say that if you care about democracy and democracy reform, then money and politics is the most important issue to you. If you care about any of the things that we've talked about, as we've seen the rising tide of authoritarianism, as we've seen corruption and abuse, money and politics needs to be at the roots of what we're doing. So I want to thank Today Not Above the Law Coalition for convening us. I stand here today because our democracy is in crisis. We are seeing bought out politicians trying to take away our rights. We see threats from election deniers because it didn't go their way. And we see the most powerful threat of all, the flood of corporate money that poisons every single part of our politics. I know we all remember Citizens United. We remember when the Supreme Court opened the floodgates of millions and millions of dollars into our electoral system. It quite literally put our politics up for sale to the highest bidder. And every single election since this, not just Donald Trump, not just the White House, every single election since, we have watched the price tag grow every year. A brand new record, billions of dollars pouring into races, the voices of regular people drowned out by the weight of special interests. And that money poisons everything it touches. It poisons our fight for health care because Big Pharma wants to profit before care of patients. It poisons our fight for affordable child care because healthcare monopolies want to cut costs by making families work harder and longer. It poisons our fight for clean air and clean water, as we know that worsens every day as oil companies are profiting while our climate crisis worsens every single day. It poisons our fight for gun safety because the gun lobby has endless cash to block even the most basic protections while children go to school with book bags and leave in body bags. And the list goes on and on. Our fight for housing and for fair wages and for reproductive justice. There is not one corner of our lives untouched by the grip of money and politics. And that's why we're here today, to overturn Citizens United with the Citizens Over Corporations Amendment, because corporations are not people. In a democracy, power should always belong to real, actual people. I'll be the first to tell you, as someone who was attacked by millions and millions of dollars to try to keep me out of Congress, it's not going to be easy. But we have to do this. We have to try. We have to get this money out of our policy so we actually have a representative democracy. This is about restoring balance and building a government that serves all of us, not just the wealthy few, a government that people from all walks of life can trust in. So let's imagine what it would look like if the voices of people rise above corporate money, when teachers and nurses and workers set the agenda, when the families and young people and elders are heard just as loudly as somebody's CEO, when our government finally listens to the people. That is the democracy we deserve. And that's the one we're going to build together. So today, I say, we are not powerless. You are not voiceless. We will not give up. And with this amendment and with this movement around us, we are going to make sure that our democracies gets back into the hands of people, or let's call it what it really is, that we have a democracy at the end of the day to fight for in the first place. So I thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to pass the mic to Robert Weissman, co-president of Public Citizen.
On this Constitution Day, we have to acknowledge this unfortunate reality. This president is the most constitutionally hostile president in American history. He's the most constitutional shredding president in American history. Broadly, we could say the Constitution did establish three large concepts. It decentralized power with the separation of powers. It established that the president is not above the law and in fact has an affirmative duty to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. And with the Bill of Rights, it gave us, we the people, individual and collective rights against the government. This president has stomped on all three of those fundamental pillars of our Constitution and our democracy. But the Constitution is not just a document, it is a set of values. It lives not because it's printed, but because we the people give it meaning. So the Constitution is alive today on Constitution Day because millions of people are protesting against the unconstitutional actions of this president. The Constitution is alive today because thousands of Americans are standing in solidarity and giving support to immigrants who are being subjected to state-sponsored kidnappings. The Constitution is alive today because governors are refusing the unconstitutional efforts of this president to deploy the National Guard in their states. The Constitution is alive today because it is being defended by organizations that are suing this lawless and unconstitutional administration. The Constitution is being given life and breath and hope by members of Congress who are introducing legislation to revitalize our constitutional principles and who will refuse to go along with the president who declines to spend congressionally appropriated money, the core function of Congress, the power of the purse. They are going to say, you will not follow what we require you to do through appropriations, that we're not going to go along with your government. The Constitution is alive today because 800 cities and towns have passed resolutions calling for an amendment to overturn Citizens United and make sure that we have a government of we the people, not we the corporations. And the Constitution is alive today on Constitution Day because across America, attorneys in dozens of cities are retaking their oaths. Veterans across the nation are reclaiming and retaking their oath. 500 teachers in every state in the nation have pledged to today teach the Constitution, not just by waving it around, but by teaching their students to think critically about it and how it should apply and how it must apply in these unconstitutional times. The Constitution is alive and living because of what we, the people, do. It's those veterans, it's those lawyers, it's those teachers, it's these members of Congress, it's those organizations, it's the millions of Americans who refuse to be silenced by a president and an attorney general who seek to sow fear and intimidation against those who disagree with them politically. That is why the Constitution is alive, and those are the people who are the great American patriots of this day. And with that, let me introduce my great friend Praveen Fernandez, the Vice President of the Constitution Accountability Center.
Constitution Day commemorates the day in 1787 when the delegates to the Constitutional Convention gathered in Philadelphia to sign what would become the original articles of our national charter. Those delegates brought to their task a keen awareness that this nation had just recently broken away from the tyranny of monarchy. The framers ensured that our Constitution would be one that rejected absolute power. It established 3 branches of government, each one designed to serve as a check and balance against the power of the other. It also embedded an oath of office in the Constitution that requires the president to promise to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. And this promise is so important that elsewhere in the Constitution, there's a requirement that other officials, too, take an oath to support the Constitution. But here's the thing. You cannot preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution while ignoring what it says. You cannot preserve the Constitution's citizenship clause if you disregard its clear guarantee of birthright citizenship. You cannot protect the Constitution's due process clause, whose text says it applies to all persons, if you attempt to limit the way it applies to non-citizens. You cannot defend the Constitution's grant of the power of the purse to Congress if you ignore congressional appropriations decisions. And you cannot support the Constitution's establishment of an independent judiciary if you question whether you need to obey court orders or threaten to impeach federal judges just because you disagree with their rulings. And sadly, these are just a few of the examples. The point is, honoring the Constitution cannot be performative. Fidelity to the Constitution must be meaningful. Thankfully, protecting the Constitution and ensuring constitutional accountability is not just a job for our nation's officials, despite the fact that I'm surrounded by congressional champions. It is a responsibility shared by all Americans. And that brings us to today. When we celebrate Constitution Day in 2025, we celebrate not only the document that was signed centuries ago, but the whole Constitution, which has been amended numerous times by we the people, making our nation incrementally freer, fairer, and more inclusive. We the people have always played a critical role in shaping our Constitution and in ensuring constitutional accountability. That role is just as important today. And that responsibility should unite all of us, irrespective of zip code or political party. We must all preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution as if our future depends upon it, because it does. Thank you. And I think we're going to take questions now. If you could please just state your name and outlet.
I have two questions for Senator Schiff for Spectrum News. First off, you've introduced the Protecting Our Democracy Act, as you mentioned before, but have been unable to garner the necessary bipartisan support for this legislation, with Republicans in Congress showing no real sign of standing up to the president. Why do you think this legislation has any chance of passing now?
Well, first of all, I think it's really important that we tell the country not just what we're against in terms of all the malpractice and malfeasance of the administration, but what we're for. What do we stand for? And even though we're not going to have the votes at the moment to ban dark money to pass a constitutional amendment, and the Republicans are going to, I think, uniformly oppose any kind of meaningful check on this president, we need to show the country this is what we're fighting for. And when power is returned to the Democrats, this is what we will make law. So, yes, the hurdles right now with a Republican Party completely in the thrall of Donald Trump, unwilling to oppose even the most incompetent and dangerous of nominees, the lawless withholding of funds, the horrendous cuts to services, and the massive cut to everyone's health care. They may not be willing to stand up to this president. We are, but more than that, we want to make sure that any future administration cannot trample the Constitution the way this one is, and invite my other colleagues to comment if they would like as well. Other questions?
I have a second question for you.
Let me go to others with the first question, if I could. Anyone? All right, second question.
Can I continue on that?
Please.
The distinguished senator began his remarks earlier by talking about faith. Faith in the American people. The more people know about the opportunity that this legislation presents, owning the ground, outside mobilization means more than our inside maneuvering on a subject like this. So when he talks about faith in the future, faith in the Constitution, faith in our country, it's about faith in the American people. Faith gives us, the faith in the goodness of the American people gives us hope that we can accomplish almost anything. This is absolutely essential. The Disclose Act is the only opportunity the court gave us to address what they did in Citizens United so disgracefully. And we still haven't been able to get a Republican vote on the Disclose Act in the Senate. But that may change now that we have another a champion of this legislation and this leadership of Adam Schiff. But understand, outside mobilization is everything. No good thing has ever happened in Congress without the people participating in that. We must own the ground on this issue. And if I just want to say one thing, because I have to go to a hearing. Here's the thing. I'm from Baltimore, where the national anthem was written. And people cheer at the game when we get to the end. When I start cheering is when it says, proof through the night that our flag was still there. Well, we are in the night of it right now, and we have to prove through the night that our American flag is still there as we pledge every day with liberty and justice for all. The times have found us. Thank the senator for his leadership.
Yes.
So I'm Miranda with Fox News Regional. I wanted to ask about Cash Patel spoke to the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday. Can you address some of the concerns that you guys may have had after that hearing and ahead of his testimony before the House later today?
Sure. I was an assistant U.S. attorney for almost 6 years. Worked extensively with the FBI and have as a legislator ever since. They have been the premier law enforcement agency in the country and the world because they've been consummately professional and nonpartisan. It is a terrible tragedy, I think, for the men and women of the Bureau to have such poor leadership that is replacing expertise with incompetence. That is replacing nonpartisanship with the most rabid partisanship. And this is not unrelated to why we're here today. You can't have a vibrant democracy without the rule of law, and you can't have a rule of law if you have a weaponized Federal Bureau of Investigation and Justice Department. And sadly, that's what we have, and I think that was on ample display yesterday. Let's go to your question, and we'll give you the last question.
Molly Martinez, Great Television. Follow up to that. When Kash Patel yesterday said that there was no credible evidence that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked any women other than to himself, what's your reaction to that?
Well, of course, that was quite a startling claim, particularly coming from someone who has promoted the belief that Epstein had a vast client list of powerful people. So it was completely contradictory of everything he said in the past. More than that, I asked him that when Ghislaine Maxwell identified that there were cabinet members very close to Jeffrey Epstein or had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but Todd Blanche refused to ask who they were and just ignored her comments. Who were those cabinet members? Not surprisingly, he refused to answer. And this is, again, the kind of incompetence we're seeing. Incompetence is probably the most polite thing I can describe, but it certainly looks like a cover-up. But let's get back to the topic at hand, if we could. Is this a question on the topic at hand?
Slightly related, but slightly off topic.
Well, I like to keep it on topic if we can. I'm happy to make myself available afterwards. Did you have a last question on topic? Oh, it is. Any other questions on topic? Any of my colleagues want to make any concluding remarks? Do you want to close it out?
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you, Senator Schiff. I mean, I think the two things that you're doing today, introducing the Protect Our Democracy Act to deal with the authoritarian abuses on the one hand, and introducing the amendment to overturn Citizens United, and the problem that's eating at the foundation of our democracy of big money and corporations dominating, thanks to the Supreme Court, our elections. It's the two pieces what we have to do going forward to preserve our democracy. And the last thing I'll say, and Praveen, jump in if you have an additional word, is on this day, lots of people are going to be waving their little constitution as a totem, But what matters is not how many little totems you can wave around or how many flags you put behind you, but whether you live and carry out and defend the values of the Constitution. And as Speaker Emerita Pelosi was saying, the people doing that now are the people across the country protesting this administration and trying to hold it to account. And that's where the hope is on this Constitution Day. It's going to build the support over time to get both components of this, Protecting Our Democracy Act, the amendment to overturn Citizens United, and other democracy reforms enacted into law, enacted as part of the Constitution in the not distant future.
Thank you, everyone.